Okay, so I just have now been studying for another 3 hours. Yesterday I got about a total of, I think it was maybe 2 hours, 2 3 hours, which is not bad at all for an all day, for studying that much, just strictly to the test. I usually take a 30-minute break, study for an hour, take a break, a couple hours, watch a movie, then go back to. So I just now did. This is a 46 math GED sample test questions that is on YouTube, and this was posted 4 months ago, so it's relatively new information. So it is like what they would do on a 2026 GED math test. There's 46 questions. I just now went through 30 of these questions with one at most, and I like to go and round down to two, where I narrowed it down to probably the best answer. But other than that, I literally flew by through all of them, where I understood the process and the formula and came up with the answer. It did take me, I think, maybe 3 of the questions, 5 minutes. If I took a test right now, this was the test that was given, I probably would have gotten even college credit according to this. So, but these are sample questions. They get much more difficult, which there's various different types of other questions. The slopes, which are really difficult. You have, so there's a huge amount of information with just 46 questions. So it's like, you're extracting like 400 possible questions and only 46 being selected to be given to you, and patterns that are difficulty or whatever they may be, and just random. And you may be given the same exact question in different forms that make it very difficult, but if you were just to evaluate it and just do the numbers, it's a lot easier, whatever which way the person is doing it. So I just did a solid 30 questions, and without a doubt, I mean, that's a passing grade. I went through and I completed like 25 questions, I think it was, without maybe until guessing one, and I got a 142. The last time I got a 142, which, it makes you really question who's grading the test and who's giving it out, but that's what I got recently, again, 142. But this, I just now answered a 30 questions, and these are sample test questions, and that's without a doubt. And the stuff that was on here relatively felt enough easy where I have a lot of time to then do the answer very quickly, go on to the next. So when I jump to the next question, the ones that are very difficult, gives me a lot more time, because I may go through a question where it takes me 5 minutes and I have to just be patient. So once I go through that question, at least I know I got that right. I know I can get the answer. I know when I'm doing the math, even though that they're showing it a different way, I'm coming up with the same answer and doing it a little bit different, just because it's easier for me to process, and it's easier for me to be able to come up with the answer, because that's the goal, is to come up with the answer, the correct answer. And I understand the part, which I do understand, is the reason you're learning the math is that you just don't want to focus on getting the answer, because getting the answer is correct, but you learn the math so that you can apply it to the real world. You can apply it to many things so you understand the structures of it. So if you were, building a house and you needed to figure out the measurements of something, then that mathematics would be able to teach you so that you could use those numbers and you know how to do it. Because in those types of format, you're not really giving any answers. You would just have to figure out things for yourself. But you know the formulas, you know the structures of it. Or you're really not given an answer option. If you're giving a measurements, there's not a series of numbers that you're given, like a A through D, where you know that one of those are the answers. So if you had like a 2x4 that was like 6x8, and you had a 4.5 block of wood, and and then you had like another 4x6 piece of plywood, then then that's what the numbers have been giving to you. that you're trying to then apply your math to. But I'm just trying to get the answers right and pass this test. But I do understand. The correct, the method, the formula, where I'm getting the correct answer without a doubt. I did go through all this already several times, but most of them I didn't remember the answer, and I just completely sort of block off the answer, and I just work out the problem. Then work out and I literally, on my scratch paper, I've literally used this entire journal. I've almost used, full 70 sheets on this. I think I already tore a few sheets out of it, but I've nearly used just about 50 sheets on this. 50 to 55, I would estimate. To be safe, I'd say 55 to 45 sheets of paper that I have already almost wasted. I only have like a couple sheets left. Look, and I'll write down my math, and I'll work out the problem, and I figure out different methods. So when I can't figure out a piece of answer, even though they're showing it on here, I'll try to do it a long way. So when my way doesn't work it, and that way doesn't work it, what I do is I go to a different answer, and then I work out those mathematics until I figure out what of the choices do I have from this other method I haven't tried, or from the method that I haven't tried yet to give me the answers. So if my method doesn't work and this method I still don't understand, or I couldn't figure it out, I write out the problem and do it the long way, even though this is long way. So I try a different method of using the answers that's been given to you, to then place them with, n equals 4, or what does the x represent, in a question. And it gets pretty complicated, like, remembering little things that really isn't figuring out how to do the math, is what symbols actually mean. Like, this is a question here, like if you look very, very closely in this math, the equal sign does represent a line right down the middle, so that you understand that there's two different sections. The only thing that I think that out of the whole thing of it teaching, and I've gone through several different subscribers, channels to see that give GED, is that all of them seem to not be able to give a proper identification of the minus sign. You can't tell whether it's a minus or it's a negative number to the number. So when you have the number, is the minus sign very close to the number, indicating, which is very simple to read, it's a negative number, or is it a minus sign? But the distance between the number and the minus sign really isn't, there isn't an indication on some of these numbers that are being written on there, and you can't tell. So it takes me more time, and what I'll do is I'll write the formula, y equals da 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 da, and I use my calculator. And so when it doesn't give me the answer, like one of the choices, what I'll do is then okay, it must be a negative. Okay, so I'll try negative, and then, but it takes me a very long time, and then I have to make sure I don't get confused anywhere in the process of it, and then that's where it takes me a long time. But other than that, I mean, I got a solid 30 questions on here. If this was a test right now, obviously it gets much more difficult. I don't know exactly how he decided to put which ones were what on this. I don't know how they did this in grading, but I'm gonna go on gotta go take my lunch break, go eat my vegetable burrito that I have for my health, and go take a walk. I've been studying now for at least a couple hours. So today I woke up probably about 9. I walked down the street, picked up my medication, and now I gotta go study for a while. So altogether, I probably got about a solid 2.5 hours. I got about solid 2.5 hours, if not a little bit more than that, for sure, of studying time. So I'm going to go take a lunch, then I'll study and go through it again. And then at night, I'll go through all the notes that I have. And then tomorrow, I might go through the computer stuff again, but kind of sketchy on it, what I'll do probably tomorrow is just go through all the notes repeatedly. It'll just be my notes that I go over just to take a look at and try to memorize, because there's a lot of questions. You know, thank God I got the formula sheets right here, because they help tremendously. So when I'm going through these mathematics, is, you know, you still got like adding and subtracting and multiplying fractions, which you got to remember them methods. You know, when you're dividing, you know, when you're dividing fractions, you have to flip a number and then turn it into multiplication. When you go to addition, then you just cross multiply, you know, and you come up with the answer, and the answer as is. You know, when you go do subtraction, you got to make sure, you know, that you do this and that. So, you know, you got functions you got to do. So, a lot of this stuff I already know how to do as well. I just have to memorize it. But there's quite a bit. Some of the stuff is really advanced. It seems pretty advanced. The polynomials seems very difficult. It takes a while. Like it's a huge structural line. Some of them a lot more complicated than they really seem. Like I got evaluating expressions. You know, obviously it gives you n to replace this, and you basically have to just kind of work down step 1, step 2, step 3 until you come up with the answer. And you just have to narrow down actually how to put them down. But yeah, so even, you know, even if I fail this test, I got my notes. You know, there won't be any more notes that I'm going to be taking, and these was what I'm going to be, for sure have to structure and just work on what I have. Just focus on for what I do have, because I need to get this passing, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and yeah, so hopefully, you know, I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, because I don't know what to expect. I'm just going there, see what happens, and see what the whole deal is. And I can't really focus on anything else other than, well, if the math, if I fail it, then I'm not going to keep my hopes up. That's just what it is. You know, I have to wait 60 days. The way I kind of look at it is, if I fail it, it'll give me a chance to take a break for a long time, for 60 days, and probably not even go over any more math. And I have my notes, and go look for a job. And then when the 60 days are completed, then I'll go through my notes, and I'll go through these videos again and see how well my memory bank is actually working. This version of it that I've now been studying for it has now made me understood a little bit, you know, at least 50% to understand what my mental state is, at least for mathematics and learning stuff. But it gives me an idea. But other than that, you know, I'm just looking to pass the grade. So, and then see how well my brain studies in 60 days if I fail it. So, hopefully I do good.